actually a work freak because I couldn't sit without doing something, and I couldn't sit aimlessly. I could not be aimless. So it was a very big transition for me because I happened not to come back to Kenya. I went and got married to my former husband in Moscow. And life there was so different. There was nothing to do. So I suffered actually from some kind of shock. You know, if you have worked so hard and you only sleep for about 4 hours and then you wake up Friday to go and do so many things in one day, it's shocking for you not to have a routine and things that you are doing which have proper meaning. So adjusting to that life was very difficult. Luckily we didn't stay long in Moscow because we went back to the States where my former husband was posted in Washington, D.C. And therefore I now function as a wife, a life of a diplomat. And then I used to interact with the former diplomats and the American wives, American women organizations, which were very, very helpful in enabling us to settle around there. So life in America became very active all over again. So that is, in a nutshell, what I was trying to say is that effects of the airlift had many, many multiplier effects in our lives. Because most people came back here and held big positions in government. They were able to take over from the Europeans in various fields, especially I would say more in education. I remember some people who became instrumental to the initiating and setting new institutions and new programs were from America, from the airlift lot. I remember a lady who was posted in Kenya Polytechnic. Her name is Miss Mudara. Miss Mudara is the one who set the Department of Catering. And now it's a huge, fully fledged department at the Kenya Polytechnic. So the Kenya Polytechnic was the first one to do catering. Then there was late Joyce Kanina, who became a curriculum developer in the Ministry of Education in the area of home science. And she was dynamic, and she made a lot of impact there. We had people like Miss Wanjohi, who was the headmistress of Kenya High School, who took over from the Europeans. So the objective of the airlift was being realized that way. There were many of us women actually within the airlift program, because again we had Dr. Madai, Wangari Madai was also part of the airlift. All those women ended up, and Miss Margaret Karugo, the late Margaret Karugo, who was one of the first women to go in the Ministry of Trade. You know, so those were the women who are now coming there to be positioned, and who were actually to prove that a woman can run an office and can be also the same of the office. Now, as far as men were concerned, the professors I taught is one of them. had people like the late Kanina. Kanina was the director of education for many years, and during that time, education had quality. And people like us who decided to become mothers, Josephine Kamau, who is now Dr. Wajir Kamau, she became the dean of students in the University of Nairobi. And then there was another lady who happens to be my son's mother-in-law. Her name is Wangeshi Kahara. I think she must have been Wangeshi Njeri. She was one of the first ladies to be employed in the ministry, of information. And she was one of the first women to lecture in the media, education media college. And she was one of the first women to handle this broadcasting equipment. And she was there for very many years. So I'm just remembering most people, especially the women, because, but also people like Wajohi, Mr. Wajohi, who was also at Kenyatta College. So as to whether Dr. Zachary Onyoka, I think was one of them, I'm not so sure, many other people, as to whether the objective of the lift was met, it was overmet, I must say, because even me, when I finally came back to work in Kenya in 1971, I joined the Ministry of Education, and I headed a very big department of teacher education, and where I was in charge of very many things like the training of all teachers, including the teachers for the schools of the disabled, both the deaf, the blind, and the physically handicapped. And then later on, when I joined the Department of Special Education, and I was instrumental to the establishment of Kenya Institute of the Disabled, where all the disabled training and rehabilitation and assessment teaching is done there, and many others. I set up several departments in teacher training colleges, like the department for the physically handicapped in Highridge Teachers College, the blind students department, things like that. So I also worked with a passion of adding more to our country. Going back to Tomboy again, I was discussing about something about him the other day with my son's Mrs. Kahara, that is her name. She told me that even after the students, the airlift student had been taken to America, he did not stop there in looking for people to educate. So when one time Baya went to America and met with her, she told him about her sisters in Njeri. And when Boya came back, he went all the way to Njeri to try and persuade my friend's sisters to go back to America, to go for more education in America. So if there was anybody who facilitated the education of women and who pioneered in strategies of making sure that women are brought in the forefront of planning and management life, it was Tom Boyer. Even his own wife